caucuses and create our own delegates. Our delegates go to our national convention. They pay their own way. I understand Republicans and Democrats get something like $60 million each from the taxpayers in order to fund their convention. We fund it out of our own pockets. Thank you very much. No taxpayer subsidies allowed. And we'll meet, as they say, the first weekend in May in Las Vegas, and the delegates assembled there will listen to all the candidates, and they will pick who our nominee will be for both president and vice president.
So Ron Paul has plenty of time to either win the Republican nomination, be winning in the first primaries, or making a good showing so he knows he still has a trajectory to win. At what point, if you were Ron Paul, would you eject out of the Republicans, and this is his last hurrah, he's not running for re-election in the House,
right.
At what point would you eject and get over there and obviously with no problem take the Libertarian nomination?
Well, here's the key issue with regarding anyone who's running in another primary system. There's about 4 or 5 states, and I think Pennsylvania, Ohio, and I think Texas are 3 of them. And so there's some pretty big states as far as votes are concerned. They have what's called a sore loser laws. So by law, if, say, Ron Paul were to run, say, in a Pennsylvania primary and lose, and then he decided, okay, I'm going to run as a Libertarian, his name for president would not appear on the November ballot. Likewise for Ohio, Texas, and I think there's 1 or 2 other states. So clearly, if Ron is going to run as Libertarian, he ought to do it before those primaries in those key populous states.
So if by March he isn't doing really good, he's going to have to basically eject.
Yeah, and again, our convention is going to be the first weekend in May, so obviously it has to be before our convention is held. And the sooner he does it, obviously, I think from the convention standpoint, the sooner any candidate jumps into the race, I think they're going to receive a more welcomed response. Because, Libertarians, we like to think of ourselves as, the primo party and not the, rejects from the Republicans and Democrats, but as sooner as somebody decides, hey, we're going to run as a Libertarian, I think they'll get a very warm reception. And it would be great to see the competition. As we all know, competition creates a better candidate, and the competition will help create more media, more awareness, more donations to the party and to the candidates, and create more excitement. And like I say, with the Tea Party movement and the Occupy Wall Street movement, clearly lots of people are very, very unhappy with the Republicans and Democrats. In fact, one of the things I like to point out, in the last years that these stats are available, from 2008 to 2010, only one political party gained registration, voter registration, and that was the Libertarians. Every other political party lost, and of course the real big winner has been those who were registered as declined to state. And just to give you an example, I live out in California, and San Francisco, everybody thinks San Francisco is this liberal Democratic hotbed. 29% of the voters are registered as declined to state, which is our state's bureaucratic name for independent. So clearly a lot of people are very unhappy with Republicans and Democrats. And so
well, it's the same thing in Austin, Texas. They call this a big liberal bastion. That's just because the liberals get together and vote and control the system. This is more of a libertarian constitutionalist area. Now, shifting gears into another subject, Jesse Ventura, obviously I told him, I said, look, if you want to run as a libertarian, you need to work with the states and go ahead and just take it. But he said, well, yeah, but still, I want to talk to the leadership and see what their ideas are or their recommendations. Have you had a chance to talk to Jesse yet?
No, in fact, I've actually contacted your show a couple of times to try to get Jesse's number. So if offline you want to give me Jesse's number, I'll be more than happy to give him a buzz. Okay,
because I all right, well, I've got to get permission to give you his number, but I'm sure there won't be a problem. I'm just going to call him after the show today because he does want to talk to you guys. And I know some people see Jesse as a loose cannon, but I think the fact that he really is a real guy and does have a lot of libertarian views, I think that's we need to get attention. We need to break this two-party dictatorship, and that's all Jesse Ventura talks about.
Yeah, Yeah, this duopoly clearly is not serving the needs of the people. It's all special interests, all insider trading, all corporate welfare. All of that needs to come to an end, and I think the people are really kicked, and I think people are so thirsty for an alternative. And
what do you think of a Jesse Ventura as Vice President, Ron Paul at the head of the ticket idea?
It'd be very interesting. Again, I know Jesse comes with a little bit of baggage, but it would be a very interesting race, and I think it would generate a lot of media attention. So it would be very interesting. I have no sense from the delegates that I know whether Jesse would be very warmly received. I certainly, through your show, have gotten several dozen email notes and phone calls from your listeners saying, "Hey, get in touch with Jesse." So
all right, we'll make sure that happens. Stay there. I want to get into some other issues. I mean, I've got a lot of questions, but I want to hear from you what you think's most important. We've got the chairman of the Libertarian Party nationally on the line with us. We'll be right back with Mark Hinkle. Straight ahead, I'm Alex Jones, Prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.com. We'll give you the Libertarian website on the other side.
If you're a man over...
By the way, the whole office is on a big health kick. I'm about the last person to get on it, but I've been trying. This is not an advertisement or plug, though they are a sponsor. I've started taking One World Way, and it gives me so much energy. I'm able to jog a lot further. And when you scoop it out, we got a bunch of whey. It's the best I ever tasted. When you scoop it out, it actually jumps off the spoon. It's like charged or something. Rob Jacobson was showing me. We ought to show people this on TV sometime. It is the best whey I've ever had. It's amazing. Okay, side issue there. I was just digressing after hearing that radio ad. Mark Hinkle is our guest, lp.org, for Libertarian Party, lp.org is their website. What do you think is most important front and center right now? For me, it's that there is a huge awakening. We don't want the establishment to misdirect that into more collectivism, more cancer being the solution. We have to realize the fight for the heart and soul of people's political awakening is happening right now.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people have been, over the years, been fairly apathetic about politics, but as you well know, just because you're not interested in politics doesn't mean politicians aren't interested in you. And so, yeah, we definitely want to tap into this resurgence. People at gut level, I mean, certainly looking at the economy, they know things are terribly wrong. And the government is more involved in running the economy than ever before, and things are worse than ever before. It seems to me that Obama is just running off the old FDR playbook back in the Depression. And if anybody has ever read New Deal, Raw Deal by Bertrand Folsom, he details how basically FDR extended the recession into a massive depression, the Great Depression as everybody's calling it, because the government got involved. And one point I like to really point out is about a year after the crash of 29, unemployment was at 10%, and people clamored for the government to go out and do something about that, and they did. And 1 year later, unemployment was at 20%. That's what you get when you get the government involved in trying to solve problems.
Of course, now they just lie and say, oh, we only have 9.2% when every other economist says it's over 20%.
Well, same thing with unemployment. They count only the people who are currently receiving government benefits. Those people are unemployed, but everybody who's run off the unemployment rolls or who are working part-time and have given up looking for full-time work, those people don't count. Kind of odd for a government that's, quote-unquote, supposed to care for us. They don't count people like that. And, of course, out here in California, there's 177 jobs in which you have to get permission from the government, i.e. licensing or certificates, in order to go into those fields. And, of course, that limits the number of people who can go into those fields. So people who are down at the bottom of the economic ladder, they have a tough time climbing up the economic ladder.
And it makes it where there's less entry-level jobs, as you said, and this happens throughout history. The guilds go and lobby government to shut down all their competition.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's bad for the consumer because that drives prices up. And this is anywhere from, taxi cab drivers to people who cut hair, lawyers, doctors, nurses, you name it. All these restrictions restrict the supply, which means health care is less affordable. There's less service providers, and that drives up costs.
Yeah, what's your view? I mean, obviously you hate it, but on government-run health care, how can they have so-called Republican-dominated courts approving it? Well, look at Newt Gingrich. Look at, in fact, we're going to break. Can you do 5 more minutes with us and talk about some of the other candidates and the Republicans?
You got it.
Let's start talking about that now for about 30 seconds. I mean, these Republicans, how are they any different from the Democrats?
Well, particularly if you look at Romneycare, it's like, hey, what's the difference between Obamacare and Romneycare? It's all government-run, government-mandated, government-forced insurance. And, of course, anytime you increase the demand for any kind of service, you increase the supply or the cost. You decrease the supply.
Stay there. We'll be right back. Well, we have the national chairman of the Libertarian Party with us for 5 more minutes, Mark Hinkle. And we were talking during the break, and I brought up the fact that no matter what you believe about 9/11, official story or not, it's being used to take our liberties. It's
Absolutely.
It's being used for all these no-bid contracts. And all I know...
It's been used to institutionalize groping and public funding by TSA agents. If that isn't an outrage, I don't know what is.
You know, I heard Jerry Sandusky, now he's out on bail, he's applied for a TSA job.
Well, he's probably qualified.
Yeah, well, they say he'll be the specialist for the children. You know, what they do to children at those airports is what is illegal. It's the same stuff. Sandusky now admits that he was horseplaying, grabbing on the children naked in the shower, but that wasn't pedophilia, according to him.
Well, you know, from a libertarian standpoint, we say, look, if I wear a government uniform and I do something and it's considered okay, but if as a private citizen I do the exact same thing, it's illegal, you know, you ought to check your premise there.
I think that's the essence of tyranny historically. What do you think of these Republican candidates? I mean, they're all as bad as Obama, and they're the leaders. What's wrong with Republican voters? I mean, is it just that they're spoon-fed by the media? Because because somebody's a Republican, it's okay to support giant government?
Well, let's not blame the Republican voters. I mean, let's look at the candidates themselves. They're bought and paid for, and the reason they're bought and paid for is because, of course, the government controls so much of the economy. I think it was P.J. O'Rourke who made the quote that when the legislature controls what is bought and sold, the first thing bought and sold is the legislature. And that's exactly what's happened both on the Republican side and the Democratic side. It's, you know, different special interests, but they're all being bought and sold.
Look, I know the American people are smart on average, and I understand that, but they've got to take some of the blame. These Republicans that love to bash Obama all day, Rick Perry, people like Mitt Romney, I mean, their real record is like Obama. Their rhetoric is just different.
Right. And again, that's where the blame does in fact fall on the voters, because if you just take the sound bites and you just look at the brochures and the websites and actually not do the research that really needs to be done and look at the key issues and what they really did in office as opposed to what they said in office, then yeah, you're not doing your job as a citizen of the United States.
Mark Hinkle's our guest, lp.org. Check it out today if you haven't, or get involved. Now is the time, my friends. In closing, before it would take 4 to 8 years for folks to wake up that the new boss was the same as the old boss. Now I see people waking up in 6 months or so. There's an acceleration in people not buying into the old fraud. If the system doesn't do the right thing and unblock people like Ron Paul, what do you see happening in the next cycle? If we're seeing this much unrest now.
Well, clearly, in fact, you know, shows like yours really have done a tremendous job. I mean, just on the air while we were talking here, I've gotten 3 email messages from your listeners. So thank you, Pete and others, Thomas. But yeah, we've got to get out there and you know, create some real change. And you know, as Albert Einstein once noted, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you expect Republicans and Democrats to solve the recession/depression we're in, when in fact they caused it in the first place, you're insane. And so I think it's